This is a story of ex-Washington, D.C. underworld crime boss, ODESSA MADRE. Born in 1907 in Washington, D.C., ODESSA is widely known as an ex-Washington, D.C. underworld crime boss who the feds call the Lady Al Capone of Washington, D.C. According to the feds, around the 1930s, ODESSA was one of the most powerful women in the D.C. underworld that ran a lucrative underworld operation that consisted of selling bootleg whiskey by the shot, managing brothels such as whorehouses, and running an illegal gambling operation. According to the streets, ODESSA is from the area around Florida and Georgia Avenues, which is known as Cowtown. Not much is known about her childhood, but it is said in 1925, she would graduate from DC's elite Dunbar Senior High School with honors. And around the age of 17, she would start her life of crime. According to the streets, by the 1930s and the 1940s, ODESSA was able to build herself an empire that was making her $100,000 a year by running a bookkeeping gambling business on the side, a controlled narcotics racket, selling bootleg whiskey by the shot, and managing up to 6 whorehouses at one time. According to the feds, ODESSA was able to build her empire because at the time, she knew and did business with every big-name gangster in the city at the time, plus her connections in the police department was deep. It is said her connections in the police department was so deep that at the time of her reign, she damn near ran the whole department because the superintendent at the time, a man named Pat O'Shea, was her childhood friend growing up. Plus, she was giving him thousands of dollars at the time, so him and his officers would look away from her criminal activities. According to the streets, during ODESSA's heyday, she ran her empire from her headquarters that was known as Club Madre. It is said at Club Madre, she would book big-name artists like Billie Holiday, Duke Ellington, and Count Basie to perform. It is said during these shows at her Club Madre, she was known to make a big entrance by wearing the top-of-the-line clothes and having an entourage of about 20 beautiful women with her that was for sale. Plus, around this time, it is said she became so rich that when she went on shopping sprees, her shopping sprees would make headlines. According to the feds, ODESSA's downfall would start around 1952, when the payments she was making to the police was exposed. And according to the feds, once she no longer had the police on her payroll, she would be arrested 30 times on 57 charges. And from some of those charges, she would do a total of 13 years in prison. According to the feds, 7 of those 13 years she did in prison, she would have to do in federal prison because in 1961, she would be caught with an ounce of cocaine. According to the streets, ODESSA would eventually retire from the underworld in the 70s or the 80s. And in 1990, she would die at the age of 83. It is said at the time of her death, she was broke and didn't have nothing to her name. But as for her legacy, people call her the Queen of DC's underworld, and it is said she was like a counselor in the mob during her reign. Plus, it is said she was the one that kept the peace between the Italians and the black crime bosses.